are quite good. Attack warning. Is it for real? Attack warning. It's for bloody real.
Live from Colorado Springs, the Drop Culture Podcast.
Want to confirm, is this an exercise? Roger, copy. This is not an exercise.
Come on, quick, get down. 1, 2, 3.
Welcome, everybody, to the Dropped Culture Podcast. This is that podcast where we pick up that piece of pop culture you forgot about or missed, shine it up real nice, and cram it in your ear holes. I'm Dan.
I'm Brock.
And Brock, I know it's a new year. Unless the quick cast came out, you probably haven't heard. We haven't done anything. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a Michael Crichton movie.
Property.
Yes.
Michael Crichton property.
Yeah, so when I say Michael Crichton, what do you think of? What kind of movie do you think we might be doing, Brock?
Jurassic Park.
No, we're not going to do that.
What else?
Might think Congo?
Oh, yeah.
We're not doing
that.
No.
With the signing ape?
No, we're going to do Michael Crichton's first book that was also turned into his first movie. A little 1971 fare, The Andromeda Strain.
Where did this movie come from, right?
It
was
a book
there.
It was written in 1969, I think.
What an idea. Because it hadn't been explored, but it was logical.
For sure.
It's like everything in the whole fucking thing is like logical.
Very.
It's how do they refer to it? Like, it's not science fiction, it's science fact.
Right.
Because that's the way that they built it, and the way that they really paid attention to the detail enough to where the technology was at the time,
So I'll ask you this, and maybe you know and I don't. Is this the first film, like maybe with the exception of like War of the Worlds or whatever, right?
Right.
Where it was a documentary? Because that's kind of how this movie was.
Like a fake documentary,
yeah.
like a found movie or yeah.
And not really to a degree, but I think that in the beginning especially.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was like the events in this blah blah blah.
Yeah.
No, it's just it's so accurate in a way that, I mean, the relatable, the believable, the everything with it, the actors that they chose for it too.
Yeah, like let's go off that what you've said first. Like, I think the believability of it is all Michael Crichton.
Yeah.
So I think he published the book the same year he graduated from med school.
Right.
So he's a doctor. He ain't dumb.
And he wrote a book.
But that book is based off of
science fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's microbiology, basically, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, hey, who better to write a book like that? They say, write what you know.
Right there. Right there.
And
it
shows. It shows.
Yeah. This movie it's almost like Jurassic Park in the way that it is believable, the way that he thought of it. It's like, the thing with Jurassic Park was the fucking whatever you call it, the amber,
right?
Yeah, the DNA.
That being said, though, I mean, there's stuff going on now that we'll not get into further. That's a different movie.
But I love the colors.
Oh, of the movie itself.
Yes, but then also the timing of the colors, the way that it's a sequence that they have to go through the certain ones to get down to the bottom one. The monkey, the rhesus monkey, and then the rats.
Yeah.
Showing all of that stuff at a certain point. But the beginning, the mystery, and kind of thinking, there's a huge backstory with Scoop and all this other stuff
that you don't uncover for a while.
Right. And if you've seen it.
But I think that's what makes it interesting, because if it was just straightforward, like, I haven't read a lot of Michael Crichton books by any means. But I assume, like any good writer, if you have that much of a following, you write a,
very concise.
Well, and you know enough when to have your turns, right?
Right.
How to keep people engaged as you're moving through.
And it was cool they set it up because it's done over 4 days.
Right.
4 days.
Which is super cool too, that it's all done in a 4-day period.
Right. And it shows it from step by step by step. And they're going by procedure, which is kind of crazy too. You're just like, damn, that's so believable.
Yeah.
Everything is fucking believable in it. The interactions with the people, especially the main doctor that was like so dry.
Yeah.
He's all, I'll be safer with them than I am in your arms. Bye. You know what I mean? I mean, it was, but that was another aesthetic to the movie that was fucking awesome.
I like it was a choice, but I like the split screen stuff to show time sequence. Like these are happening at the same time, kind of a deal.
Yep.
Or
love that shit.
Just the way, I don't know. Like I said, maybe that's a little hokey, but I liked it.
No, it was an interesting way to tell the story of what they're looking at. So it's like a real time, and they split it.
Like this, you're seeing him now. You're seeing what he sees.
Exactly. You know? Yeah, and then it moves along with, and the frames move along with it. Even the flashbacks and the thoughts that they had that was pretty cool
I
too.
agree.
Like when Ruth was, she was standing there and everything, and the doctor's like, I tried to show them with science. You know what I mean? It's just like, what the fuck is that? But it's like what shit would be going through their heads. Right. And then you have the asshole, the main guy.
Hall?
Yeah, the young guy.
Yeah. Hallmark?
He was a fucking dick. It's like he had too much testosterone built up. He got pissed off at everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Even the first, he was like, "Hey, you're wanted in your office," and he's like, "Oh, I gotta," and he's like, "Ugh."
In the original book, it was all male scientists.
Yeah.
So who was it? It was the screenplay writer, the guy who adapted it, that said he wanted to make that a female. And he actually cleared that, like, with some folks that were in science, like scientist friends. He's
they
like, would that be
out,
okay? And he's like, yeah, he goes, we have great women scientists. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. And when they say, they use that term barbaric, it was basically, they were kind of pretty much saying what it was.
Yeah.
They're like, not allowing women to do this. And
Yeah.
barbaric.
Yeah, they didn't hide that.
Yeah. Which
Women
was smart.
and
Yeah.
epilepsy, and we'll get into that. But,
a lot
though
of
I think that was point of contention for me. I'm like, you should never do that.
Yeah.
Like, come on, not in that business.
No.
You should tell them everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. But back then, if you didn't have your foot at the door, you were fucked.
Yeah, especially as a female. And she was hardcore.
She was an enjoyable part of the movie to where, again, it lends to that. It's not the credibility of it, but it's just the acting style. You know you're in a movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you're like, that's fucking good. She's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Especially whenever she like zones out. She's like, misses a lot of shit. And then, and the little details like Hall putting his fucking foot underneath her head whenever she's doing that. It's like spare no expense. You know what I mean? It's like that. That's exactly what it is. It's like a Michael Crichton deal. It's like spare no expense.
Well, we do get Michael Crichton in this movie.
For like a tiny bit.
Which is weird because he's like 6'9", so for him to have a tiny bit, who knew?
He had to be sick. That was a good one. Yeah, that one saved up. It was awesome.
No, actually, I just thought of it on the fly. But yeah, so they had to have him sit down so he didn't like tower over everybody in the shot.
Yeah, they're like, we got to get him out of the shot. No, I like the format too, and like you said, those cut scenes going from showing just them walking and then going into each room.
And that was actually the director's choice.
Yeah,
that wasn't like a lot of times. Yeah. I think that DOPs kind of help make those decisions.
Yeah,
to some degree, but I think this was all wise.
Yeah. Well, at this point, and we'll talk about him here in just a second. Yeah. It was just like it was scientifically believable.
So let's give just a general. What's this movie about, Brock? Because maybe nobody knows.
The Andromeda Strain basically is a foreign living organism from space that could potentially harm us. That's the best way, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's basically like if there was a germ in space that they brought back.
Yeah.
If they were on the moon, that's where they got the idea. So
And it landed from a satellite that was knocked out of
orbit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And landed next to in a Texas town of Piedmont. No, Arizona. Piedmont, Arizona.
Yeah.
And with a population of 50. And that's where we start.
That's basically, it's so simple. But then what's interesting about this movie is you get into the implications of everything. Then you also, because you're riding a wave with this movie, the same emotional. It is an emotional movie because you're really drawn into it the first time.
I agree. And I also think that it's a movie where they don't give you any additional facts than what they've given the main characters.
Right.
Some movies are different, filmed differently. But this one, you're learning as the character's learning. And I kind of enjoy those movies.
Yeah. And you're also, the introduction of the characters, too. You're getting just enough time, right?
For sure.
And then also they're doing the time jumps, which makes sense when they're doing them. I think that would have been the only other thing I would have used something to allude to that. Which they do, of course, when he's like, "Tell me about this famous letter," and then it like zooms out. It's like that's like the Citizen Kane shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like boom, and he's like, "I require your help too."
Did Wise have something to do with Citizen Kane?
Yeah, he edited it.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, he Robert Wise is fucking the shit. Well, anyway, let's get to that.
Okay.
So basically, it's a germ, and it was a hypothetical situation.
Yeah.
That landed.
It's a microbiological.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something weird. And we learn all about it.
We do.
So it was directed by Robert Wise.
Yeah.
Now, Robert Wise had been in the industry since Kane, because Kane was his very first major project that he was assigned. Because before that, I mean, he probably like carried around everything. He was just on the lot all the time, right?
Right.
So he grew up there. Fucking, this dude was the shit. For real, though. Think about everything that he did. Like Star Trek, the motion picture.
Yeah. That
was so fucking amazing at the time.
Well, what was it, by 1965, he had already won, or he had won, I guess, but the ones he would win, 2 Oscars for Best Picture and Best Director.
Goddamn.
For West Side Story and The Sound of Music.
See?
Okay.
And those are grand movies, you know? Grand movies. And then
absolutely.
Again, with like Star Trek, it's another expansion. Plus, The Day the Earth Stood Still.
That was the one that I was going to go to next, because I feel like that he got a lot of what he was going to do here from that sort of style.
Yeah, I watch that movie every so often, just because it is. I mean, it's such a well put together movie, you know. Especially just the way everything kind of flows in it. So with all of his movies, you're like, damn, he does really have this skill that's kind of like he's got his own deal, you know. Compared, I don't really hear him in a lot of sentences with, you know, a lot of newer directors, but I would. And I don't know if I'm saying the right thing. I mean, he's regarded up there pretty high, but at the same time, you don't hear as much anything about Robert Wise, you know?
No, but I can guarantee that there's probably some directors that are popular out there that they know who Robert Wise is, and he's had his influence on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
because I think that's the kind of director, like, not necessarily well known nowadays for the dated movies, you know, that he did.
Yeah.
But I guarantee anybody that's in that space knows, you know, like,
he's the best.
He's pretty good.
He's up there with Kubrick.
Maybe.
He made good movies.
Yeah, for sure.
This one was really good.
I agree.
Well, we already know who wrote it.
Yes.
Michael Crichton. Westworld and shit.
Yeah.
I can't believe he did that.
Yeah. He did a lot of stuff.
I didn't.
He wrote some books.
Yeah. He wrote a shitload of stuff.
Yeah,
huh?
dude. Wouldn't you? Like, okay, I got my doctorate, or I could make money sitting down writing what I want to write and not have to worry about stress.
At that point, at that point, he's like, well, I already got a pool.
Well, I think he'd just become a doctor, so, like, it's not like he'd made any money yet. But he's like, I probably paid off all my student debt with that first book. Let's go.
That's probably what Gordy LeChans did for real.
Yeah.
The end scene where it shows the older version of him, right? You're like, it's Gordy LeChans. You know what I mean? All grown up. He's smart. Now he's just writing Michael Crichton novels. That's pretty cool.
For sure.
DOP on this one was Richard A. Kine. Maybe I spelled it wrong. Kine. But he was a DOP for Howard the Duck.
Well, there you go.
King Kong.
Say no more.
King Kong 1976.
Okay.
Didn't that have Jeff Bridges in it?
I don't remember.
Or, no, damn. I'm not remember. The Monkeys.
Hey, we're the monkeys.
Mm-hmm. Hang 'em High, Soylent Green, Battle for the Planet of the Apes, Star Trek the Motion Picture, and Double Impact.
All right. Well, if you end with Double Impact, then.
It's the twins. The twin Van Dams. Music was done. I thought the music was cool. Didn't you? It was it was a weird kind of.
Well, I thought that there was something I had listened to or read where they had made the music with just like sounds.
Was it just like synthesizers and shit?
Well, like sounds from around a lab or something like that. I don't remember, so I'm not going to quote that.
Yeah.
But
there's one sound effect in particular when they go into the electron microscope.
Oh, I know.
And it sounds like a fucking cappuccino machine.
Fact.
You're like, what the fuck? Are they making something over there? Who's boiling? Who's making coffee? I didn't think they could have that down there.
I don't know. Their computers look like 1971, though.
They share space. That's basically how they describe it, which is awesome. I would imagine a computer at that time, having to collate all that data.
Sure.
You would have to share between the rooms.
Yeah.
It's like, my turn, click. But the But the music is kind of, it's more akin to like Kraftwerk and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
So it's got that quirkiness, but it's also got this weird vibrational tune, like you're in an oscillator or something.
Yes.
Oscillation overthruster. Something. You're just spinning, right? I thought it was pretty cool. And I think there's probably a lot of that shit going on at the same time, because about this time too, this one like Suicide was... he was starting to make his synthesizer shit. Yeah. Just kind of starting to experiment. So hearing shit like this, I know it was a big influence. Had to have been.
Oh, I'm sure.
On a lot of people. Now let's get into the actors.
Okay.
Because they were all relatively unknown to a certain degree.
No, for sure.
I don't think they were like... They were more stage actors, I guess. Arthur Hill, he was Dr. Jeremy Stone.
Yes.
He is the one that basically... he is the one that has no tone in his voice.
True.
Aren't you reading the stuff that I've been sending you? No, I don't get in much to science fiction. Me neither. He's so basic.
He is very basic.
But he was in Butch and Sundance the early days. God, Future World, The Cleanup.
He was in the pilot episode of Murder, She Wrote.
Oh,
what?
That's a damn. They should print that on his grave.
Is he dead?
Probably.
Oh, he is.
Yeah, he's pretty old. Yeah.
He was like 84, so he did good.
Yeah.
You did good, kid.
Good game. David Wayne, right? He was Dr. Charles Dutton.
Dutton.
He was in How to Marry a Millionaire. Batman, he was the Mad Hatter.
Oh.
He was one of them. One Mad Hatter down. James Olsen, he was Dr. Hall. Dr. Mark Hall.
He was kind of our main guy.
Yeah. He was... I didn't realize this until fucking I read it. He was in Commando.
Yes, he was.
He was the Franklin Kirby. I'm Ray Don Chong calling Franklin Kirby.
Absolutely. I remembered him as he was the priest in Amityville Horror 2.
Yes. See, right there. There's like two things. This is the third thing he's probably only really been in. He wasn't in a lot, though. He really wasn't.
Yeah.
Kate Reed, too. Kate Reed, she was on Friday. She was on an episode of Friday the 13th, the series.
Oh, well, then she wins.
Yeah.
'Cause that was a great show.
Yes. And Dr. Ruth Levit is what her name was in this. Then you got Paula Kelly. She was the nurse. She's the nurse at the bottom level. And she was Night Court.
Yeah.
She was on the first season of Night Court. She was Liz.
Nice.
So it was like, oh, that's fucking cool as shit. She was also in Soylent Green.
Yes.
Which
Which are made of people.
Right.
In case you didn't know. Spoiler alert.
In Sanford and Son. Come on. We're getting a good crowd.
Sorry for the musical interlude. Anytime anybody says Sanford and Son, I have to do at least a little portion of the theme.
And we're back.
Yeah.
And
It's a compulsion.
hey, you got to do it. You got to do it.
That's right.
Then the old guy, Jackson.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was,
Peter Jackson was
yeah.
his name?
And he was played by George Mitchell.
Not by Peter Jackson.
Not by the real one. He was on the Unsinkable Molly Brown. He was probably like a background character or something. Ramon Barry. Ramon, right? Oh, it's Ramon. Ramen.
Coming from the guy that's like half Mexican.
No shit. I'm like, ramen. Ramen noodle-o.
Wow. You know how we could mix it up even? Rameno noodle.
I need to use my cheaters here. Hold on. Ramon Bieri.
Yes.
He was Major Menchek.
Yes.
Major Menchek here. It's so fucking... it seems like that dude, right?
Yes.
He was on Jake and the Fat Man, right? And he was also on the Amazing Spider-Man TV show. That was pretty cool.
He was on Jake and the Fat Man.
What a fucking show.
Yeah.
What is our obsession with like these detective and crimes?
Hardcastle and McCormick.
Yeah. Falcon Crest.
Falcon Crest. I don't think that fits the genre, but sure.
I just got to get it off.
Magnum PI.
Magnum PI shit. There's so
Yeah,
many of
there's
those.
Kojak.
Yeah. Columbo.
Columbo. Yeah.
Damn. There's too many.
The Equalizer.
But then somebody was like, "We need a new show. We need something hot. Jake is really cool." Some dude's like, "Why don't you just add a fucking Fat Man?" They're like, Jake and the Fat Man.
That's it.
You did it. Thanks.
BJ and the Bear.
Thanks, Jackson. Yeah. Whoa. Well, and then now we're at Kermit Murdoch. He was Dr. Robertson.
Sure.
He was somebody else. He was on Star Trek. Richard O'Brien was Grimes. He was on Wonder Woman. Heaven Can Wait.
Oh.
That.
Well, there you go.
There you go. See? Peter Hobbs. He was on The Man with Two Brains. Hot to Trot. Classic.
Yeah, yeah.
Eric Christmas.
Has the best name ever.
Mm-hmm. He was
Maybe
in
not
Airbud.
I would just change my name to Sweet.
Sweet.
So it's
Sweet
like
Christmas.
I would want the teacher to have to call my name.
Sweet Christmas.
Sweet Christmas. Anyone? Sweet Christmas.
Sweet Christmas. That'll be me. Thank you.
Yeah.
First day of school would rule. Every year.
Hell yeah, let's go.
Then we got Ken Swafford. He was Toby in this. He was in Captain America 2, Electric Boogaloo. And he's our Falcon Crest alumni.
Well, there you go. Now I know which Captain America you're talking about.
Rebby Brown.
That's right.
But that's it. That's the cast. It's a small cast. It's a small kind of setup.
It's a small, relatively, like you said, unknown cast.
But it has giant implications to how crazy it would be.
And I think having those characters lends to its believability.
Right.
Rather than having some big actor in there. Like nowadays, if you made this movie and Tom Hanks was the guy, you're like, oh.
Yeah, you're going to put fucking Kirk Douglas in the lead.
Tom Hanks is going to save the day at the end.
He'll get shot with the laser. Fucking weird. Train for small animals. But really, we get the sense at the very beginning, the opening part of the movie is the disclaimer that this is real.
Yeah.
So one of those, and it was like, this is not against the law, because this is going to be public knowledge whenever this comes out. So you're like, ooh, it's real. Ooh, I showed up. I didn't even read about this movie. But,
it's like the Blair Witch.
But it's 4 days in the life of finding extraterrestrial life from space or manufactured life from Earth in space.
Spoiler alert.
I know there's a lot of shit. There's a lot of shit in this movie that it really can.
It opens it up one way or the other.
Yeah, it's fucking cool as shit too. And really, honestly, so some dude is in a laboratory. Some really, what did the main doctor win? Like 2 Nobel Prizes,
something. Yeah.
So smart, has all the grants, and he was friends with the chief science advisor. And they kind of put that together after the lunar landing, that they needed something to where they could go study an organism that would be potentially harmless to them in controlled environment with no other like germs or way for it to grow if it's bacteria, way for it to even change.
Right.
So it's just basically if a foreign booger came to Earth. Why did that make me laugh? What did I call it?
Kind of what it was.
It was. It was somebody flicked a foreign booger in.
Definitely some green fluorescent paint.
Yeah, it just stuck on some fucking rock and flicked it our way, and gained space. But so it's completely small. So you have these Nobel laureates, right? Then you have there's another doctor that he's friends with. The other doctor is like, nah, he's more of a professor,
right?
So he's teaching. The way that they do the linear style, or the style for this, is non-linear in showing, because we basically kind of get an introduction to everything at a Senate hearing, which is weird. Like a congressional hearing or some shit like that, right?
At the beginning?
Yeah, where he's kind of having to explain. We get to see, like, the very, very, very beginning is them, like, finding the town and shit, right?
Yeah.
Because they see that. But then it's like they do this time jump kind of at the very beginning to illustrate.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know, that's the hard transition that I think, if was a little bit different, would have been a little bit more relatable.
Okay.
For most of...
I like the way it started out with the... Like, we come back to it, like you said, later. But when they find the town, like, at that point, I'm like, what kind of movie is this about to be? Like, you still don't know at that point.
Right. And it's perfect the way they set it up.
Right. And so it's just those two guys. That guy takes 2 drags off a cigarette that he lights up, and then, like...
You notice that too? Ex-smoker here.
Like, hey.
Dude, you just wasted that.
Yeah. Cigarettes were 10 cents back then.
Yeah. Well, which is perfect.
Yeah.
And if you think of the way that the movie was built around just that. So they're like, I can't see anything. Do buzzards fly at night? It's nighttime over there? Goddamn.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're like supposedly way out in the desert somewhere.
Right.
Which this actual town is like somewhere in... like near the place where they did all kinds of movies back in the day, like Giant and stuff like that.
Okay.
Down in South Texas somewhere. Okay. Yeah. But no. It's just this whole random idea that... And
it's one of those movies that, too, like, well, even while the credits are going on, you're seeing things...
You can read.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you read it, there's some parts, too, that you could could pause on and be
And there's
like,
some
okay,
documents like that keep popping up and like things like that. So you're kind of laying it out even before the movie starts.
right.
Something goes on. One thing that I thought in my head too, from like perspective of this is going to be like my first time watching it again, right? You don't even know what time period you're really in
Yeah.
when that starts. Like you don't know what direction that is, right?
Yeah, it's kind
You
of
could be after there was some big thing. We don't know at that point, right? Really?
I think somebody that I watched something about or read something about compared it to 2001. Maybe it was Trumbull, the one that did the visual effects for this, Douglas Trumbull. Was kind of like they can exist in the same world. It's like 2001, but this was like before. Somehow there is a tie with how the effects work and shit like that.
Okay.
But they could inhabit that. But you really don't know what you're in for that first scene.
Which I thought was cool.
Yeah. And especially, too, what really, because he had a method of 3 things that he wanted to do with this biological entity or whatnot, right?
Right.
It was like identify and then neutralize or something like that.
It was identify. Was it modify? Something. It was anyways, three phases. And the last one was being able to destroy it if they needed to.
Right. That's the pacing of the movie too.
Oh, for sure.
So you're
only getting 4 days, so you get introductory.
So you
day
get the very
and then the 3 parts.
Yeah, you don't get to see anything fall to Earth or anything, but it's basically a satellite. So these 2 dudes are in this weird van. This guy, it's like toot 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 toot. They're like, oh, it looks like everything's dead. Let's go down there. And they start getting closer, and they call into base. And that's the part too that this kind of, you're like, God damn, ouch.
Yeah.
Because everybody's just sitting there, right? And this dude's like reading a fucking Mad magazine and everything. And he's like, go ahead, leave your radio on. And then all of a sudden they start yelling.
Right.
They're like, ah! It's like they got attacked or some shit, right?
Right.
And they're like, holy shit. But they told him to go in there. And it's like, what are your orders? And he's like, proceed to satellite.
Right.
Everybody's just sitting in the room like, fuck.
Yep.
That's when the shit hits the fan. So that's minute number 1. So we're going through that process with like man check, right? The big brass, right? And they type out that deal where it shows all these people, right? Which is fucking pretty cool,
Yeah.
It's like it's coming in the best. You're getting the best of the best, right? You're getting all these people, and then you start getting backgrounds. Then you start getting, after they get, the first doctor, when they're like, hey, wildfire.
Yeah.
There's been a fire, sir.
Like interrupts his party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His wife, though, come on. I mean, she's like, Jeremy. And he's like, dude, I didn't know. Jeremy. He's like, let me go.
Yeah. What do you want me to do?
Yeah. What do you want me to do? There's guys with guns. Well, Jeremy. God damn.
Yeah.
But he's the main one. And
Yeah.
he's got top priority clearance for everything.
Right.
So then we start learning that it was basically a shot in the dark theory of something that might happen because he was on the lunar landing project.
Right.
Whenever they came back to their clean room, because they could have caught a germ out there. They don't know.
Right.
So they took that into account. So they're that scientific branch of going to the moon.
Right.
You had propulsion, you had living, and then you had these guys who were like, what if?
Right.
And he's sitting around the table with his, with one of the other doctors, and you get to see him, and because they're reading that letter, and he's like, hey, this could happen, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I'm going to use your help. And then they really talk about the money
Yeah.
in that first part, a lot. They're like, oh, is this his $1 billion mistake? But it's only like 14 million. So adjusted for inflation,
Right,
yeah,
right.
it's going to be way fucking high. But they really they're setting it up and they're doing the Tarantino switching, but they're doing it at the proper time.
Right.
So we get to see all of these people, like when they go to get Doctor, the female doctor. Shit.
Levitt?
Yeah, Dr. Ruth. Dr. Ruth Levitt.
Dr. Ruth.
Dr. Ruth Levitt. When they go to get her, that scene, because she's the next one, because they start pulling from everything. They show that flashback, And then, of course, then they have the older guy. You know?
Yeah.
And his wife, too, is like, it's a love-in.
Yeah.
You're going to a goddamn hippie party. You're like, what? And then the little boy, oh, hey, there's guns outside.
Yeah.
And he's like, just everybody go to sleep. I don't need anything. So I just need my glasses. That's it.
That's right.
And then they show Dr. Levit.
Yes.
She's doing some experiment, but then she like sits down because she's exhausted. Probably.
Yeah.
She's probably trying to like.
She's always exhausted in this show.
Yeah. It's in a weird way. It's like that's how she runs.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? And then they after
I wonder
they
if
get,
that has to do with what we uncover later about her.
Right.
I don't
exactly.
know enough about that, but
Yeah. Don't know. And then the only person that they weren't going to have ready at a certain time was going to be their surgeon. This guy was a surgeon. He had an appendectomy or
yeah.
he was doing something, right? So, and he was due for that. And cause he checks in with him and he was like, yo, I got everybody else except for, this dude. And he's going to be out here in about 30 minutes. We're coming to get him.
right.
So they go get him and they spend some time on Hall cause Hall's a dick.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just a jerk. I mean, he rips his mask off. He's like, But I bet you if you're a surgeon, I don't know, might make you mad. Maybe he did some method acting. I don't know. But it just wasn't needed for him.
Yeah, agreed.
He didn't have to be such a weirdo. But he was the young, fun-loving dude,
Yeah.
It's like fucking full of piss and vinegar. So they got to have that dude, right?
Kind of thought that was the old man that survives.
Yeah, I know. That guy with sterno and shit.
Yeah.
That's fucked up. So they get him. Then they're on the helicopter, right?
Yeah.
Before this, they have the first flyby, right? So they have that whatever jet flyby, take video.
I think it was a Phantom, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a Phantom jet.
Oh, this is pretty cool.
I think so.
Yeah, and it just had the trigger too. I guess it was just like surveillance or whatnot.
Yeah.
Or could get pictures like that and get away quick. Would that be how that worked?
No idea, dude.
I don't know, maybe.
I just remember, I think that jet was a F4 Phantom. I don't know.
It was cool though.
Yeah.
And so he's doing the flyover and he's like, good God, it's like everybody's dead in this town.
Right.
So we don't know what happened to the people that drove in. So they're incommunicado. They're gone. And then all we get to see is like the birds and shit like that. The vultures are feeding on these people already. So fast forward to them being on the helicopter. So you got Dr. Hall, right? And what is it? Stone?
All the doctors.
Yeah, Stone and Hall.
Yeah.
They're
Hall and Oates.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Hall and Oates, right? Because you were a rich girl. So they have them together and they're talking in the helicopter and he's like, why did you choose me for this? And he's like, it's the odd man out hypothesis. He's like, what? Dude, you're like a fucking, you're part of this like super team. You know what I mean? Like fucking badass, super badass team, right? Of all the surgeons, microbiologists, and you don't do your homework. He's young. Oh, he's rebellious. He's the Pauly Shore of the group.
I want to remake this movie and now have Pauly Shore be them.
Yes.
Let's go.
So, and he's like, I never read into science fiction. And he's like, me neither. Right. So he's serious at this point. He's like, fuck, you didn't read. But I thought it was cool because basically the odd man hypothesis is unmarried men are better able to evaluate the best or execute the best, most dispassionate decisions in crisis.
Right. So basically they're not using their emotions. They're making the most logical decision.
Because they don't have any kids.
Right.
They don't have a family.
Wife. Yeah.
Which is a hell of a thing to like come up with and put into a book at that point too.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, holy shit. That, because again, it's like the science fact part of it.
Right.
It's not science fiction, it's science fact. Because it just makes sense that they would put somebody like that in charge.
Yeah.
So they're first going to identify it. He outlines, he outlines all the steps for it. So Wildfire is activated. They use Wildfire in, what was it, Walking Dead?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the name of the Wildfire.
Yeah.
So I thought that was.
I wonder if that
cool.
was like a callback to this, though.
I
you
think
know,
so.
like,
Yeah, I think
which
it
makes
was.
sense. You know.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty. Maybe that world exists. Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
Oh shit! It was a spaceship or something that came back from Earth, from Venus.
Or Uranus. More likely Uranus. But anyways.
But anyway, they're getting taken to the crash site.
Yeah.
Because they have where the thing fell down, everything like that. They know they've had the surveillance. The two dudes are supposedly gone, right? They've seen dead bodies, you know, and all the buzzards, and they've checked in enough, right? So there's no action going on down there. So the helicopter comes in. He's like, you got to stay up, 1,000 feet?
Yeah.
And keep a perimeter and come get us at this point.
Right.
And he's like,
and they're all in like suits.
Yeah, and he makes that stupid comment about these are supposed to be, you know,
right,
non-porous or something. And so they're down there just gathering information. Bahal has no fucking idea what he's doing because he never kept up with anything.
Yeah, he doesn't know anything.
Yeah, so I mean, they sit down, right, and they're in these really biologically like cool looking suits, you know, like you could fucking step into a germ, you know. Looked really fucking cool, right? And so they get there and they see all these people just lying around. So they're like, the first thing,
this is the laziest town ever.
Everybody's on a siesta. They're all surprised.
It's the which one of the Planet of the Apes movies was that where they were all pretending to be dead?
Oh yeah, Conquest.
yeah. Trick you! Ha
ha! Got you.
That's not what happened.
No. So they're going by all these. There's like kids.
They're just flashing to all the dead folks.
Yeah, they get up to one,
and she's got boobies, and they make sure you get to see that twice.
Yeah, I know. You can see it.
Like up close, let's hold that, make it a little blurry.
Yeah, and then let's back it up. Let's put it on the whole screen.
Right? I was like, wow. Really
yeah,
focusing in on that, huh, fellas?
I know. I was like, how did that happen? There's a weird inference there, but no. Whenever before they go in there, he asks him. All these people had coronaries, and he's like, no, there's no sign, there's no grimace.
Yeah.
So the medical expertise in him, he's like, no, yeah,
right.
it's not going to be that. So he saw all those, and he even says these people were cut down or were killed in mid-stride or some shit like that. Yeah, so it was just like that fast, right?
Right.
They do get to a place after they do those really cool, like searching all the little bitty
like the split screen. Not really even split screen, but just whatever that's called.
For reference, the Ang Lee's Hulk.
Yeah,
kind of
similar.
That, but it was this one was like the very beginning.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it was like watching somebody, I don't know, put together the pictures. It was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, and they did use a lot of different cameras in this too. I know they used a split diopter camera, like 2 or 3 major scenes,
and that was a wise decision as well.
Yeah,
I mean, and
yeah, both ways.
No pun necessary, but
no pun intended.
Right.
But it was really cool the way that they did use those, but then also use that that technique of just like splitting them.
Yeah,
you know, and changing shit. You know, it's like he threw everything at it, everything you could think of that was like a well-known kind of a trope in movies or something like that. He just wove it in and it was perfect.
Right.
So they get to the doctor's office because they get into the truck, and that's when they first notice in the truck that something's weird.
Right.
So he's like, you would have, you know, the corpuscles would be, blood would be gushing out of this thing. And he's like, huh? Because they killed the birds too. As soon as I got there, they had to drop a killer on the birds so they wouldn't spread it. Right. So that was like number one, because this must have been, 8 hours since.
Right. Since the initial. Yeah.
Since they tracked it.
Right.
Basically, because it must have came down the night before, and then the townspeople saw it, took it in, to town, and then whenever they opened it, because they're at the doctor's office, right? And he picks up the doctor, and he's an asshole about that too, because he's like, did it themselves, should have left it closed. But then he picks up the doctor and he sets him down. And he's like, "Look at his buttocks." He's like, "I'm not a funny man." He's like, "No, for real." He's like, "Huh?" He's like, "Obviously your blood would pool, so this is weird." So he takes that scalpel and he's like, "Don't cut yourself, right?"
Right.
But he's a surgeon, right? So he cuts open the old man's wrist and it's just dirt. He's like, "Clotted blood? That's weird." So they get outside after they just brought a grocery bag for the fucking thing.
Yeah.
Put it in that shit.
We did see the people real quick before we get out of that is when they're going through all that. Not only do we see the people that died from that, we saw some people that died from suicide as well.
Yes, I forgot about that one. Yeah,
like one person drowned themselves in a
tub.
The tub, but one of them had their face in the kitchen sink or in a bathroom sink, right?
It was the tub that he was in.
Was it the tub?
Yeah, and he even remarks too. He's like, "I didn't think you'd kill yourself like this."
Yeah.
Somehow, and then if you see his legs, they look like they were tied or taped or something like that, and like his hands, something caused. He was crazy, and it caused that. Well, because supposedly
you see quite a few of those.
Yeah, and there's that one lady. She's like, "Fuck them all," you know.
Yeah.
And they're just like, they went crazy, you know? So, but then whenever they get out, they're about to kind of wrap it up, right? And then they hear a baby crying and they're like, what the fuck, right?
Right.
And then the helicopter guy comes in, blah, 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 right? And they find a baby. And while they're about to leave and put the crying baby into the little scoop bucket, right? Here comes the old man.
Right.
He's
got like a cleaver.
Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, my tummy hurts. You did this, right?" So obviously they're survivors.
Sure.
You know.
Well, just the two.
Yeah. And they even Dr. Stone says something like, what does he say? Because he wants to feed him. Hall wants to feed him. But Stone's like, "Don't do this, don't do that. You know, we don't know this, we don't know that." He's like, "Damn, sorry, Dad."
Yeah. Well, and it makes sense, though, because if we introduce these things, now that changes whatever's going on. Right. That environment.
And he even says, I wish he could tell us, you know, what had happened.
Right.
He's like, no. Maybe we'll learn something from him.
That baby cries and cries.
The whole time. But apparently that was... that was already happening. The baby didn't shut up. But
because they wouldn't feed the motherfucker.
They only had a little bit of formula. Once a day. But so they're all called in for this shit. And that's when we get to see the other two doctors, Levit and Home Dude. The old man? Yeah, the older doctor. Dr. Dutton.
Dutton, that's it.
And when we saw his little flashback of where he came from, he has a drawing on his chalkboard, and it's a microscope pointing at a petri dish with all these little things saying, "Take me to your leader."
Yeah.
And they're all laughing at him, and he's like, No. This is what we're going to talk about right now. So this was like a major university kind of a thing. You know? Right. It's like a think tank. It's something badass, right? And you're like, that is fucking weird, though. And not to even think about that part of it, right? You know, but they were thinking about that. Him and Stone,
right?
But then I don't know. It's next. What happens is that's when they're going through the desert
in the car.
Mm-hmm. And she's like, she's bitching the whole time.
Oh yeah, she is definitely like the naysayer. She's the complainer, but like she's complaining about big things, you know, like she's all about like they're all criminals, fuck them, kind of like she's an anarchist or something, you know.
Yeah.
She seems to be, anyways. Well, I don't know, whatever that is.
She's just a little bit more liberated.
Yeah,
I would say against the status quo. But,
for sure.
But yet...
She smokes a lot of cigarettes.
Yeah, pushing the boundaries. She even mentions pot.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they're driving up, and she's like, "You're lost." And he's like, No. This is where we need to be going.
Yeah, it's like the Department of Agriculture or something or other.
And he tells her, well, they spent $50,000 making the road the way it was.
So nobody knew that there was people that back there, basically.
Yeah, all the machinery that's back in there. So this... Because it's the agricultural outreach. That's kind of a callback or Resident Evil uses that as a
Yeah,
callback,
yep.
which is fucking cool, especially the deal.
I think that there's a lot in this that has Resident Evil on it too.
Oh yeah,
Their Resident Evil took from this. Rather,
yep, really
you know,
fucking cool shit.
which is awesome. No,
Yeah.
no complaints.
And
you
this
know?
is a real research facility. And
Right.
when they're driving through the gate, she's like, "It's a great place to grow pot."
And he's like barley.
In their little code word, he's like, "Do you have the time?" And he's like, "My watch stopped at 11:49." Oh, that's how he introduces. He's all howdy doody.
Yeah.
So they go through it, and he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh man, I love this place," because we know that doctor already is kind of like wanting to give up everything. She's doing something completely different. So
Right.
all their backgrounds, but they all know each other.
Right.
Now, she even knows about Hall too, because whenever they're going down the elevator, they're talking with each other, like, you know, it's hypothetical, blah blah blah. She kept up with everything,
Right.
you know, the readings, everything, and that was a really cool split too.
Yeah.
That they would do it going down that whenever they would show those elevators with
Yeah.
everything. And then so they get to the first one. Their first one, they
First level.
their first level 1.
Yeah. This is what you have to do to get a level 1.
To get past that, she had to put her hands on there.
Right. On
Which
the
was
scanner.
like it was like a hand scanner. It was fucking cool as shit, right?
Right.
And she even was like, "Oh, it reads 10,000 lines on your finger at a second or some shit," right?
She's like, I have a record or whatever she
Yeah,
says. I've been arrested a lot. What?
Right. But she's alluding to all of what really is going on with her,
Right.
which is nothing sinister, and it's it's pretty sad how stupid how stupid it would be in that climate
Right.
for that,
Sure.
and we'll get there.
Yeah.
But so they go into that first level, and that's when Hall and Stone come in too, and they're like, psh, you know, they gotta like fucking hook into the deal because they just got off the chopper with the 2 living subjects,
Right.
and then they were talking in the elevator that was going down to level 1, how she didn't believe it until, you know, she saw the photographs. And then they kind of do almost like the stage deal where they're like, it could be extraterrestrial. Bing.
Right.
And they're like, huh?
What?
Did you? No, I'm not going to say it. So they got to go through these levels, right? So that the first little deal that they really go through is that combination with the nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
Because that's fucking cool as shit to think about too. So that odd man hypothesis plays into this right here.
Right.
So this is where you get to learn what that is. So basically, as soon as they start researching a foreign object or whatnot, they arm a nuclear device. So that nuclear device wipes everything out, no problems whatsoever, right?
Right.
And they call it a directive. To nuke the town, they call it a Directive 712 because they already wanted that. They were like,
7-Eleven?
yeah, a 712 or some shit.
No,
like
712 was
Yeah.
for nuking the town.
Yeah, and the president decided to wait 24 hours to do this. And we just kind of find that out all about the same time, right?
24 to 48 hours is what they say when they come out. Yeah.
Because if they did it, you know, if they do nuke the town, then it fucks with something.
They had, just recently signed
Right.
a treaty basically not detonating any nuclear weapons on
Inside
Earth.
your own border.
Yeah, something,
anywhere like that. Yeah. So it was a hard decision, and you see the big white guys in there. Like, I'm gonna make all the decisions. You know, they look like they woke up drinking scotch.
Yep.
You know. but then so they're coalescing all together into their meeting room, and it's this round kind of like weird structure that they're walking through, right? But we were on the nuclear bomb. So the nuclear bomb is armed. So as soon as there is a chance of an outbreak, shuts the facility down, nukes it.
Right.
Right.
Sets a timer to nuke it.
That's the last of the last.
A self-destruct sequence, if you will.
Exactly, right? With everything there, they started it right there, and then Dr. Hall is actually in charge of disarming it.
Yeah, he gets the red key that he puts around his neck.
You can't unarm it without that
Right.
stopping it at the substations on each level. But then they thought, we need more substations.
Yeah, so there's a
Again.
couple non-functional substations we've come to find out.
In the lower levels.
In the lower levels.
They were
they're
adding
not
some
done.
more.
Yeah.
So he said, you have to know where these are at on every level.
Right.
I was like, okay. So And then they show the facility, and he describes it. Each level progressively getting a little bit more biologically clean.
Yeah.
With each level and each color.
Yep.
Which is fucking pretty cool too, because they reference the Navy's study on the effects of color during something like this.
Yep.
Which is fucking pretty cool, the way that they outlined it. So Michael Crichton had this fucking great
he
mind for that shit.
Absolutely.
To really absorb it. Because honestly, whenever they're describing that, and if you look at the way that their state of mind as they're going through the cleaning process. So as they got to start at one level and they got to end at, their subject level.
Right.
So in each level, they do different things to clean them biologically. That like they
did the xenon flashing.
Yeah, they did that first to them whenever they came in through the room.
Right.
And then they got hit with long wave radiation.
Right.
Yeah, and then they burn the outer paleo layer of their fucking skin.
Yeah. So they're like that ash you see is actually your like burn off skin.
Right, yeah.
Head to the shower.
You had to walk through like a pool of oil or some shit, something just weird. So they had to go through all of this, but if you look at it, the first level is red.
Right.
That's like danger mode. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, we got to get in there, and nobody knows what's going on. Let's get some answers, and let's get a plan going, right?
Right.
So then you go to the second one is yellow.
Right. Caution.
Right? It's joyful. It's like cheerful and shit like that, right? So it's like, hey, calm down. This is almost over, right? And they keep saying, don't worry, don't stress out, and they have them in all these weird deals, where they're scanning their bodies, scanning their heads, asking them questions, shit like that, right? Just to get them prepared, right?
Yeah, the weird question thing what was that about?
I have no idea.
Like, what are you clearing their mind? Because I don't think so.
And then Hall's being a dick to even the fucking computer. Because they have a supercomputer.
Yeah, it reminded me very much of Kurt Russell with the chess master thing.
yeah. Except for this was a little bit more intimate. He started scratching on the fucking grate and shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're almost purifying in a way.
Hall's thirsty.
No shit, right? Then you get to the blue level. The blue level was kind of right before. This is where they have to sleep.
Yeah.
When they get there, they're like, you know what? We're gonna sleep 6 hours of every day. Right. They're like, all right, cool. So they break, and then they wake up, and then they have to go down to the stability level, which is gray. So that everything's ready to go. You're getting your last of everything, right? You're getting your coffee or whatever they're having, caffeine pills. They have
to get that pill at the end.
The high colonic.
Yeah, and he's like, no. Or she's like, no. She like lists everything they've done to him, and she's like, and now this, and he's like, I haven't done anything for your GI tract.
Right. He's like, well, who wants to join me for a smoke? So this is like fucking cool, right? But when they get down to the white, this is your freshness. This is your
clean.
Yes.
So fresh and so clean.
It's hope, goodness, everything like that. But that's where you're studying. So the psychological effects of going through those levels at each time in those proceedings were put there in like a specific order to get them ready for what they did.
Sure.
Because they did sleep, but they didn't sleep that much. It was still kind of like the second day was the one that really... Second day and the third day...
was when they really started noticing they needed to have to sleep going forward.
Yeah, because they did stop for that one break, and they met back up, and then... Yeah, that's when they were all in the cafeteria. He's like, doop, comes all...
Why do we even have a cafeteria?
Yeah. What is this for? Like, this is not all the time. Because they've been running, training exercises on Wildfire.
Right.
And the nurse references it. She says, up until now, Wildfire was just a fucking joke. We didn't know it was real.
She didn't say joke. She said theory or no. Right. What was it?
Pretty much like a theory or like an idea or something. And we haven't even got to see the subjects yet.
No.
We did see them in their elevator ride down because Hall wanted to check them at one point.
Right.
So they show the baby screaming, and they're just giving the baby dextrose and something else, right? Saline, or I don't know what it is.
I don't remember either, but
And the old man too. So we have no idea why they survived and nobody else did.
turns out I'm not a doctor. I just play one on TV.
So they actually get down to where they're going, and then they split off into these rooms, right? They have their own specific room to do specific tests.
That's right.
So, I mean, fucking Dr. Stone is badass with those little fucking things, like where he's picking up the subject, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's got the satellite and they took a sample of the air. Then he opens it up with those arms, right? Those hydraulic arms that are controlling something.
Oh yeah,
from the other
he's
side.
deft with those things.
He's really good,
yeah,
right?
for sure.
Because he even gets treated like an asshole too. Because whenever that guy's like, hey, did we get any messages about that 712? The dude's like, the thing goes ding-a-ling. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, but come to find out.
Yeah, it's your fault, dickweed. Because that's what it was.
Yeah.
It's fucked up. And they even talk about that. It was only a piece of paper.
Yep.
That really stopped it from being totally effective. Human error. So they're seeing them come down. They are getting ready to get in there. Dr. Hall is like, I don't know, he's biting at the bit. I want to see my subjects. I want to go.
He doesn't call them his subjects, he just calls them his patients.
Yeah. So,
right?
So they were in there. It was like, identify, treat, locate, identify, treat. I think that was the steps. Yeah. And that's where they were at with him. Hall was on the treatment part, finding, with the micron filters, Home Dude was.
Mm-hmm.
He was going through the filters, making sure, identifying how big it was, the size of, the mutation, if it was a mutation, if it was alive, anything like that.
Right.
And then you had the very beginning one where they were all getting ready for it.
Absolutely.
And they had to grab it. So you see... they were all gathered in one booth, right? That's above it was on the gray level. And so they bring in a rat, right? And they expose it to the air that was around the actual satellite, right? So they crank it up, rat dies, right? And then they're like, all right, step 2, let's grab a rhesus monkey. And they got a whole fucking vet in there and shit,
right?
Like a adopt-a-pet shelter.
Yeah, like he goes through the microns to see how big it is first, right?
Well, he does that after
or is
this.
that after that?
Yeah, because they have to make sure that it's airborne and how big of a creature
would affect. That's right. That's right.
So they did the rhesus, and they learned that it spreads out from like the chest. It gets absorbed into the lungs, and then it just spreads outward. So they're learning a little bit more about everything, right? So they kill a monkey, which was not real.
Of course.
Well, they did kill it, but I mean, they brought it back to life, I think. They're like, don't worry, we got oxygen.
It wasn't traumatized at all.
No, didn't see the other side. But so they're like, all right, now we know that it's going to be this. So Dr. Stone and Dr. Ruth, Dr. Levit, they go into one room. So now they're doing their split. Stone and Levit are in one room, and they are going over the surface of the satellite, one like micron at a time. Weird shit,
Yeah.
They're really, and she's just like, this is so boring. We need to go in. We need to see what's there.
Right.
That's at the same time that Hall is also getting introduced to the patients. He knows that they have a system there on the computer that can name, diagnose, do everything, right?
Right.
So he goes in there and they kind of figure out some shit. The baby's still crying. The other dude's like passed out, right? The Jackson guy. And he kind of gets his learn around the whole deal after he gets reprimanded for hitting on the computer. Like, she's a 67-year-old lady out of Butte, Montana. I was like, well, okay. I don't know why they had to throw that in there. I don't know why Hall had to be that way.
Yeah,
Arrogance.
Yeah. He's
So
a doctor.
Yeah, and she even says it too. She was like, a surgeon's not going to cut their suit.
Right.
Oh, okay. But see, now the one thing that we haven't really touched on is on the outside, since the bomb wasn't dropped.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting to see, like, it's the stuff that they use around the masks. It's not rubber; it's a form of it.
Yeah, it's a more skin, like they say.
It's like it's supposed to be skin. It's what, like, all the respirators and different things like that on aircraft or anything,
Right.
that's military use like that. So it's eating that shit away because they have a plane crash.
Right.
They have no fucking idea that this whole deal is going down out there.
Right.
Which is crazy anyway, because we get more of that at the very end. So right here, they're still identifying it. Home dude gets it in there and he puts it through all these filters, one rat to another, and finally figures out how big it is. And they're like, yes, right? So break number 1, and then they zoom into the 400 times. Break number 2, they find the object.
Right.
It's like a grain of sand.
Yep.
Could have been it was no bigger than a pencil tip. But it has this green stuff on it, right?
Right.
So they identify it and they're like, all right, cool. Now we know what it is. Then because Hall is still like, okay, now you can feed the baby,
Right.
So they're finally able to feed the kid. And the kid the whole time is like, oh, no. It's like, God damn it.
Make up your mind.
Fuck. What do you need? Raising kids. And so basically he's looking for a connection between the two.
Hall.
Yeah, Hall is down there. It's basically he's wondering why that this old man, because he wakes up and he talks to him. He's like, so how long have you had an ulcer for? And he was like, oh, so many years. He's like, what do you do for it? And what does he call it?
Sterno. So it's like gas.
Yeah.
He's like drinking fuel.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it was like butane fuel
Right,
almost.
right.
Yeah, which is, and he's like, okay, so because he doesn't even know what sterno is,
Right.
And then the computer's like, oh, cool, this is what it is, and it like relates to him, and he's like, okay, so he's got to figure out why the baby with nothing wrong with it, what that has in common with that dude.
Right.
So it's just this weird. Yeah, it didn't attack them, but they're still looking for that link. They figure out how big it is. They find it. They isolate it. They all get together, and they finally see the thing growing.
Right.
Right? They do when Dr. Levit sees it first, and she thinks, "Oh, you know what? I'm fucked up."
Yeah.
Right. This is before she even zones out on her own test.
Yeah.
Right?
Where she misses
Yeah. That
what
was
would have led them to the discovery of how to stop it, basically.
Exactly. Like she actually gets stuck in her epilepsy at that point.
Even though we don't know that at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just think she bugs out a little bit.
Yeah, and
And they've been up for a while at that point.
And she references red lights, and she can't be around flash and stuff.
Yep.
So they're looking at that. They know how big it is. They know where to get it, because Home Dude even reaches into the whole deal and pulls out the sample with the little bitty forceps, and it's like, holy shit. You're precise on that, buddy.
Yeah, for sure.
They watch it grow, and then they figure out that it's a crystalline structure. They're
Right.
like, holy shit. Okay. So how does this, do its, and that's before they even get the electron microscope.
How does it eat? How does it poop?
Yeah. How does everything work? Right?
Right.
So they're getting closer and closer and closer. And at the same time outside, it's getting worse and worse and worse.
Right.
Because airspace, they're like, well, we couldn't cordon off airspace. And it was the same pilot from the beginning, I guess.
Right.
And because he crashed because his ship was, he was getting small exposure, so it was taking longer. Yeah.
Yeah, but it went through his mask. It ate through his mask.
Right. Just to get into his respiratory system. And at that point, they already knew how it killed.
Right.
So it was up to Dr. Hall to kind of figure out where that genetic thing is. But once he knew it was crystalline, he was still like, I don't fucking know.
Right.
They put it under the electron microscope, and it's basically in a vacuum, and the thing fucking grows.
Yep.
And they're like, that's how it does it. It doesn't have any amino acids, right?
Right.
So it
doesn't waste any energy, only consumes.
Exactly, yeah. And it survives in a narrow pH level.
Right. And before that, we've learned that because of the sterno that the old man is taking, his body is extremely acidic.
Yes.
He has a high acidity. Whereas the baby, because it's yelling all the time, is actually alkaline because of it pushing out whatever.
Yeah.
Carbon dioxide, I guess. I don't know
Yeah,
the
it was.
story.
Yeah,
I don't remember the science, but because
alkalosis, yeah.
so it was, that body was alkaline. So they were opposites. So we still don't have an answer on why they both survived.
right. And
So
that's
then
yeah,
we find out they have that very narrow pH balance that that Andromeda can survive in. And so there lies kind of an answer, right?
yeah,
The answer. And this all happens like, this dude's like Superman in the last 10 minutes of this movie, dude.
yeah,
He figures out exactly how to do it, right?
yeah.
And then we'll get into like
Yeah.
the journey, right?
Well, I mean, at that point, they know what it is. They're really going after it, and they don't know about the rubber part of it because all that shit's going down outside, right? And the military didn't even know why I did it,
Right.
but some dude that like supplied the mask, he's like, "Nah, we've been using that stuff since '52, something like that, right?"
Right.
So that shit's going down, but then they finally get a hold of him. They're like, "You're going to answer me now?" Cool. He's like, "No, we didn't know." Home dude gets his fucking ass chewed out,
Yeah,
right?
and we
He's just
find
like,
out they were trying to send messages the whole time.
the whole fucking time about the 712 because
Right.
he thought the 712 needed to be done at that point.
Right.
Well, he's like, "Do it." So they call the fucking president again. The president reluctantly says yes, and in that little bitty space of time, they're like, "Wait a minute, it consumes energy."
Without waste. So therefore, they would just be making it bigger.
Just expanding it. So if it was a nuclear bomb, it would just wipe us out
Right.
immediately. So they're on the little telex screens, and they're like, "Oh shit,
We was wrong.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
stop it!" I mean, it's fucking.
That one guy's
crazy.
like, what?
"Yeah." Oh man, we can't be playing ping pong all day. And he's like, "Just tell him to call it off." He's like, "Oh, thank God, the president will be ecstatic."
That he made his
Yeah.
initial good
Yeah.
decision,
Yeah, he tried. He was like, "No." But that's amazing to think that if that actually did that would consume the fucking entire Earth in a matter of I don't know how long. Because if it would just expand exponentially, goddamn,
Yeah.
it's fucked up. But so
then they have the contamination piece, right?
well, the gaskets have worn off because they use the same material in the
Well,
gaskets.
don't we have the initial contamination and then we find that out? Is there like
No,
dealing with that?
It's pretty much there's a seal that breaks. In one of it was the central seal that connects to all the fucking rooms. Yeah. And so Dr. Hall is like, "All right, I know it can't kill me, but because the other doctor, what's his name? Dr. Dutton, he's conducting another autopsy. But that opens up, and that's where the initial
that's where the contamination comes from.
And
But then
then-
as that's happening, we find out the seals have been eaten, are all made of that same material.
Right.
That the mask was made from, and that it eats through.
So as soon as that fucking alarm goes off, bam, 5 minutes. Because they got 5 minutes to disarm the bomb.
Right.
And Hall's like, "Fuck, okay."
And Dutton's sealed in the autopsy room.
Right. He doesn't want to get out. He's not
Levit
gonna.
comes around, and they're trying to figure it out, and she looks at the red lights going, and she has an epileptic seizure.
Yes. Everybody thinks it's the virus. And
Right, so they all run. They're like, ah!
He's like, it's not that. She's not sick. He doesn't say it's epilepsy either until
Not until
his
afterwards,
nurse,
yeah.
His nurse comes in there and
She
he's
starts
like,
to even back up.
he's like, "Listen, it's epilepsy. Give her a shot of this. Everything's good, right?"
Right.
So then rushes to the exam room where they have the two subjects, the baby and the old man, right? They cut him out of the suit.
Yeah, before that, they have
Oh,
that
yeah.
conversation, right? Like with
Dutton.
Dutton and the other two scientists.
They're like, "Don't play with my life." He's like,
Yeah.
"Just breathe,
He goes, "We're going to," because right now, so here's what happens. They go in, and the other doctor, not our main dude,
Yeah,
not Hall.
Dutton.
No, not Dutton that's inside, right? Dutton's the old man inside.
Stone.
Stone, yeah.
Yeah.
Stone's got the oxygen cranked up. really high because he feels like that's going to help him stabilize, right?
Right.
And he's like, no, I figured it out. You got to turn off the oxygen and just breathe. And boy, he fights it. He's like, no.
Play with your own life.
Like, yeah.
He's locked in that room and he's like, I'm real scared, Jeremy.
Yeah.
I'm real scared. There you go. I mean, that's another thing for that odd man hypothesis. You know? I don't know. It's the way that they weave that in there. You know, it's pretty fucking cool. And he needs to get him into alkalosis or something like that.
Right.
He says.
So that's for him doing
it's the breathing.
It's the breathing, but you can't do that forever because then you'd hyperventilate.
Yeah, and you're creating carbon dioxide, so
Right.
it lives in that little bitty spot that if it doesn't get it at that point, then it's dead.
Right.
So so then they're going. He finally convinces him. He's like, "Okay, I'm okay," and then I'm okay. And then the rat's okay. He's been in here exposed as long as I have.
Right.
I'm okay. And he was a careful one too, because at the very beginning, when one dude was trying to hook up something, he was like, "No, use the machine." He's like, "Okay," and he fucks up, right?
Right.
So that's when he has to pull the danger moves and get into his suit.
Yeah. So he has to get into his suit and then get cut out of the suit.
And they have laser beams.
And he goes through some little, so in the room with the baby and the man
It's a
and the
central
nurse
corridor,
who's in her suit, which is connected. They're all, the suits are connected. It's like having the arms, but it's a whole suit.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So he's like, cut me out.
Yeah.
So she cuts him out, and then he runs through some little portal that's right there.
Yeah, it's the
like a service tray.
Yeah, exactly. It's access to everything, the core and everything.
Yeah.
But he's got to go into different levels.
Yeah, and then that's when we find out about the lasers that were made for small
animals. Yeah, they were tuned for small animals, and he's
keep
like
stuff out of there.
Right. Yeah. So he's hiking up this thing, right? And he's hauling ass too. He's trying to. And he's like, duck, because home dude can see him. You know.
Yeah. So he's watching and telling him where the lasers are going to be hitting. Basically,
all he's saying is duck, and then he moves to different sides.
And then he's like side. He does say side one time.
Yes.
Even though he does it 3 times.
Yes, and the worst injury too. He gets up there pretty high, right? Because he goes to one level, it's sealed off.
Right.
He has no choice but to go one more level up. And then he gets shot with the laser in the face.
Yeah. He got laser faced.
And it fucked him up.
Well, yeah, the guy even says, shake it off. He goes, it's mostly just shock.
Yep.
You got to keep going because, again, they're running out of time. This whole motherfucker's about to explode with a nuclear, detonation.
Yeah, he's got 2 minutes at this point.
He fucks around a bit, too.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. There's times where I'm like, dude, the key is in there.
Yeah, he's like, I'm fucking tripping.
And I'm like, no, just fucking do it.
They get his hand, too, right? And then he has to open the doors. And he finally finds, he's like, where is it? And the woman's like, oh.
And then she runs away because she thinks he's got the virus.
Yeah. And it's only fucking 8 seconds to spare, and he does it.
Yeah. And then he doesn't know that he did it because he wakes up in bed. And it was all a dream. No, just not really. But that's kind of what I thought. I'm like, oh, and you were there, and you were there.
Wow. Wow, guys. It's good to see you again. Yeah,
Mr. Stone, he was there too.
You tripped before we even got inside and knocked yourself out. You mean I dreamt it?
But yeah, so then they find out the superstorm of this bacteria. It had changed completely and
grew.
and evolved, and it was now no longer bad for humans. Like, it didn't affect us.
Right.
But they also had a cloud seeding thing they were going to do to wipe it out, basically. It was like acid rain, basically.
And go into the rainwater and get killed that way. Yeah.
Changing, acidic rain, changing it and killing it,
Well, it was fucked up, too, because Dutton, Levit, and Stone were all in the room, and they were looking at biological warfare. That's when we get to the
maps.
sinister.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that.
That's when we see, the sinister part. Was it man-made?
Yeah, because they're like, no, obviously it's theoretical.
Yeah.
That's a little bit earlier, but that was crazy. And that you're right, that undertone was important because then now we don't know exactly, did it come from space?
And Stone didn't know about Scoop or anything else.
Right.
All he knew of was it was like a lunar landing thing, whatever the fuck he was thinking,
So, as this has gone through, we found out about Scoop. We found out about them already having this laid out, in maps of what would happen
in a germ warfare.
yeah.
And
On our land,
Yeah.
too. Like, yeah.
and was that a test from our government?
Right.
See, that's the weird part, because he doesn't know about it, and they even say that, well, we've had experiences with scientists before.
Yeah.
What?
Those scientists.
I'm the senator from Tennessee.
The distinguished gentleman from Tennessee.
The fuck was that?
Where's Eddie Murphy when you need him?
Right. So, I mean, the way that they wrapped it all up, and in Stone at the very end, he's like, so you protected us, you actually solved it. And he's like, well, yes, we still need to fucking think of this shit,
Right.
yo.
But according, like as the movie ends, the hypothesis, the odd man hypothesis, which is not a real hypothesis, worked.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, he made the decisions and did the things that needed to be done.
Yep. Hey, he was level-headed enough to know that he could defeat it.
Didn't mean he wasn't a douche earlier in the movie.
Fucking asshole. Good God. He was just a dick. He was a sexist dick.
Yep.
She's like, I got a name, motherfucker. Don't call me computer.
Right.
She's like, I fucked up Charlton Heston not too long ago.
That's right.
No, but so what did you think all the way through?
I enjoyed this movie because it was different. And I like that it was like, basically we're taking these scientists to figure out this problem, but they're all the best scientists from these different areas, right? And I like that it was like immediate threat. And then it was like everything took place in that 4 days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Tarantino jumps, everything.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. So I enjoyed the movie. If you want me to rate it, I would give it probably 3.5 out of 5 microbiological matter units.
Oh,
Yeah.
so about 3, microns.
Yeah, about 3.5 microns.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I mean, I've watched it a few times. I don't know if it's like rewatchability, so maybe a 3. Maybe a 3. I think it's something you could watch a couple times. Like if you watched it too much, you'd be like, I'm not really finding anything more in this. It's pretty on the level.
Yeah. It's all right there on the surface. There's not a lot of under anything. You can infer a lot of shit about it, but I did watch it probably, I think, what did I say, like 10 times?
Yeah.
So there was.
Well, I mean, for a show
levels,
like this, I get that, but I'm saying like you're probably not going to watch
normally,
it 10 times for fun.
Like the Forbin Project.
Yeah.
Like, all right, let's marathon Forbin it.
No, this fits in that vein, though.
Yeah,
actually, absolutely.
1971.
Yeah,
came out the same fucking time.
There
So
you go.
we knew that change was coming as a society. The scientific dudes did.
Right.
Arthur C. Clarke, shit like that. It just kind of changed everything.
Yeah.
And then we're kind of in that nuclear age still, but not really.
So I think for something like this to work, you have to have a writer like Michael Crichton that really knows the science to make it semi-believable. You know what I mean? Even if it's just based off theory that you could infer, like you don't have to know everything.
If he got his doctorate in 71 or his master's or whatever,
69, I think, is when the book came out. So
he'd seen a lot of shit.
Sure.
He'd seen a lot of shit and a lot of technology.
But and you know that science, right? Like, so this is believable to another doctor.
Right.
Maybe it's not right. Like you could go look and and disprove it.
Yeah.
Whatever. But like pretty much rock solid with the science, which is nice.
Yeah, exactly. It was a far-fetched idea, but the smartness of the smart ability.
The smart ability.
I just made up a word.
Is that a smart word?
That's a smart.
I think if you throw smart in front of anything, it's fine.
Smart ability.
Like, this is a smart word.
Well, yeah.
You should use more smart words.
Yeah, you shouldn't use more smart ones. But the overall tone of the movie was very, very smart, very cool.
Yeah.
I didn't really see, there was really no comedy. There was no need for it, even though he threw in that fucking. So again, you could say that's part of it.
I would say part of Hull and part of Levit. Because she had some, some of her remarks were definitely there for the comedy.
Yeah. To me, she was the standout of the whole fucking movie.
I agree. 100%.
Honestly, it was like, who the fuck is that? She's pretty badass.
Which is weird because she was the character that was kind of made up for it.
Exactly.
You know?
And be the standout on it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't have Gregory Peck in something like this. It was going to be Gregory Peck or Charlton Heston as Stone.
Wow. I'm glad they didn't do that.
Yeah, me too. Because it made more sense and it makes it more believable.
Right.
Like kind of like the found footage shit and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you're lending to it. Which I thought this movie was fucking badass. First time I saw it, it was just like, oh my god, this was out since when?
So, what would you rank this? If you ever gonna grade it in some way?
I'm gonna say 7.5 out of 10.
Okay. That's a much more precise rating system than the one I was using, so I liked it.
7 out of 10. 7 out of 10, mainly because of subject matter, but overall, great movie.
Yeah.
So it rates better than most of the movies that I've seen, but it rates really high up there with very technical science fiction films for me.
Right.
You know, like really good. This would be something I'd be like, recommend to somebody.
Yeah.
100%.
I think that, like, if I give something a 3, and it's definitely like something like out of the pool of stuff that's not well known, that's a good score. You know, it's not life changing.
Nope.
But it was a good movie.
I wonder how many lists this movie's on. Probably in the AFI's top 100, but
You think so?
maybe.
Maybe.
But still, it makes my top 100 list.
Yeah.
It would 100%. I think I'd put it somewhere there. I'd put it somewhere kind of in the middle.
Okay.
You know,
I would have to really ball out $100 or 100 movie list for me to even know. You know what I mean?
that's difficult.
It's
yeah.
a lot of movies, but it's not a lot of movies in the course of movies. So
in the course of everything that we've ever liked.
right.
I think is the believability that really makes me want to like, because here's for reference, I watched the Andromeda Strain on a Tuesday night. I watched Street Trash on a Wednesday night, and I watched them over and over again. Two completely separate different movies.
For sure.
Separate different everything, but yet I was enamored with both of them because of everything that was in them.
Sure.
You know, and going from a library movie to a fucking like a toilet paper movie. You know what I mean? You're getting
some of the things that I liked about this movie were just small things. Like, I actually liked it. Like, it was almost a negative in the movie, like where he wouldn't do the nuclear strike, but like him, the president, I should say,
right,
doing that saved the world.
Right, inadvertently.
You know what I mean? So it shows that there's also good to having measure rather than just being reactionary.
Right.
You know, even though those scientists initially would have just said, do it, they did.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that would have screwed everybody over. But without that time that they didn't have that communication, they would have never uncovered those things.
Right, right.
You know?
It's pretty fucking cool.
Sometimes you have to take a pause.
Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't. Well, I think that kind of does it for the Andromeda Strain. What do you think, Brock?
Yeah. I think it's a badass movie. Came out the same year as Colossus.
Yeah.
So we're kind of on this weird streak right now.
Yeah, so grab you some 1971 science movies, science fiction movies, science fact, if you will.
Science faction movies.
Yeah, check those out and let us know what you think. Where can they do that, sir?
Dropculture.com or dropculturepodcast@gmail.com. That's where you kind of send your gifts.
Yeah, a little more personal.
Yeah. And then Facebook, Drop Culture.
Yeah.
Twitter, Drop Culture.
Oh, that's X, sir.
Oh, X, whatever you call
X
it.
going to give it to you.
Twitter gonna give it to you. It doesn't have the same ring. No. Everywhere else, too. We're on
That's
all the
right.
podcasts and everything like that. So,
Everywhere great podcasts can be found.
because we're on the top of that list.
Yeah.
Later, dudes.
Peace. Cool.
Mark.
I have to pee so bad. I drank all that water. I drank all that water in like the first 15 minutes of us talking. I was like, oh, I'm going to have to pee. And I do.